Welcome inside of frigid Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. All right, Chris, everybody was cold, but after this classic, I think everybody goes home happy, certainly wearing the red, white, and blue. It was one of the games that will go down not only in Patriots playoff lore, but in NFL playoff history lore. I don't think that's hyperbole. It was one of the great back-and-forth games you'll see in the NFL postseason. Terrific game. Patriots win it 35-31. They advance to the AFC Championship for a fourth straight year. And some historical perspective, first of all, the Patriots become the first team in NFL history to overcome two touchdown deficits and come back to win. Your thoughts on where really the game turned?
I think there were a couple of points. First of all, I think when they answered that first 14-point explosion by the Ravens, they got a touchdown of their own. And then secondly, the 51-yard touchdown pass from Julian Edelman to Danny Amendola in the second half. The third quarter really is where the Patriots started to shine. They were able to put it together on both sides of the ball. They got a big turnover. They were able to really start to seriously generate some offense. They ended up tying the game. That started to put them over the top. They started to gain some momentum. That fourth quarter touchdown pass, obviously, or the fourth quarter touchdown play, was obviously the game winner. But at the same time, this thing started to turn in the third quarter. And again, I think that when you remember this game, there's going to be a lot of little things. But that 51-yarder from Edelman to Amendola, I think, really started to swing the momentum back in New direction.
How appropriate. That's his first pass since college. And Danny Amendola told me in the locker room after the game that they have been working on that pass, that particular play, all season long for the one chance, because you really only get one chance to show that on film, then it's done, it's used up. They've been working on it all season. They execute it to perfection. What I really loved about that play is how Julian Edelman sold it at the line of scrimmage, because it looked like the play really froze in time, and then you see Amendola sprinting down the left sideline. A couple of things. Great play, but Danny Amendola had another huge game, arguably his biggest, on the biggest stage for the Patriots so far.
A pair of touchdowns. I think he came close to, I don't know if he hit 100 yards receiving, but came close to it. A season high in terms of yardage, in terms of touchdowns. Look, this is a guy who's really been lost offensively, lost in the wash pretty much offensively over the last year. Plus, he really came up big today. I think that, I don't know if we're going to see something more from him down the stretch, as the postseason continues on, but he certainly deserves credit for a big performance today.
All right, this is also a game of perseverance. You talk about players who had rough patches in this game. You talk about stars on the Patriots who had rough patches. After the game, Vince Wilfork said, I'm sure a lot of people, turned off the TV, gave up on us, and were skeptical we could come back when you're down 14 points twice. But our big players made plays at the biggest times. Tom Brady throws that pick right before halftime, something he's done a couple of times this year. Ravens come down and score. Darrelle Revis gets called for defensive pass interference on that same drive right before halftime. And you're thinking the karma's not good, but both of those players showed up big in the second half. What did Darrelle Revis say to you about Steve Smith after the game?
Yeah, he said he got his one touchdown pass early on, and then he got erased. And I think you go back and you look at the box score in this one, pretty much the case. I think when you look at Revis and you look at his performance tonight, I think it was not his best as a member of the New England Patriots. He took great exception in the locker room, too, after the game. We're going to be writing about this for WEEI.com, that it was not a pass interference call. It's been interesting this year talking to him about the points of emphasis. Usually he's just said, well, the rules are the rules, and you got to play within the rules, and the refs are going to make the calls. Today he took exception to the call, and it's going to be interesting to see if there's any blowback as a result of that. But yeah, Brady in the second half also on that game-winning drive. I think he was 8 of 9. He ran for a first down. He had the touchdown pass. After really struggling early on, he really started to come together nicely down the stretch.
Two things: Brady's touch on the fade pattern to the left corner of the end zone to Brandon LaFell for the eventual game-winning touchdown. But the audible, when he raised his left hand to Rob Gronkowski, seeing Gronk right behind you, as a matter of fact, in man-on-man coverage, the in-cut for that touchdown also in the third quarter. I believe it made it 28-21 as the Patriots started to shift momentum. Those are two examples of how good Brady is when the pressure is on.
This was not his best game as a member of the Patriots.
Even though he set a new record, franchise record for 367 postseason yards.
Exactly, but this at the same time was not his best performance as a member of the Patriots. Again, those first two quarters, I'm sure he would like to have those back. At the same time, like we said, he came up big in the big moments, and he was able to make those passes. He was able to make the connections he needed to make with the game on the line. It all turned out well in the end for New England.
All right, Duron Harmon, another huge play and the game-saving play at the end of the game. Joe Flacco sees Logan Ryan, who came in for a dinged-up Brandon Browner, and he sees him covering Torrey Smith, and Flacco looks at the line of scrimmage, I believe it was on third down, and lofts a ball, and I don't think he's expecting Duron Harmon to come over and cover, and Duron Harmon told me after the game he was predicting all week he'd have a pick. He also admitted he does that every week, but he said, I'm going to have a pick this week, and as I tweeted after the game, he couldn't have picked a bigger time for that pick.
And Brandon Browner talked a little bit about it after the game. He said he had a great week of practice. And it was interesting to watch him thrown into a big situation in a big moment, because Browner goes down, you move McCourty to really fundamentally a quarterback spot for a large portion of the second half. And so I thought he came up big when he had to move, and that shows another, a side to McCourty's value here when you talk about his versatility. But Harmon making the big play in the big moment, I think it's still a question mark as to where this secondary stands. Other than Revis and Browner, and maybe Kyle Arrington, I still think you're going to see good passing games try and go after those third and fourth cornerbacks of the Patriots. Malcolm Butler, Logan Ryan. You're going to go at Duron Harmon if you're a quarterback in that kind of situation. I don't blame Flacco for throwing that pass in that situation, because you see Duron Harmon over there, you feel pretty good about the coverage. You feel pretty good about what you've done to that point in the game when you're throwing at Duron Harmon. But at the same time, they were able to step up today. That was one of the points of emphasis I know that we made going into this game. We've talked about that a couple of times. Those young defensive backs, whether it's Harmon, whether it's Logan Ryan, whether it's Malcolm Butler, whoever it is, they need to step up and assert themselves. They did a pretty good job this afternoon.
And Duron Harmon did a very nice thing, a teammate type of thing, a Patriot thing after the game, giving credit to Logan Ryan on that play. When I asked him, what kind of credit does Logan Ryan deserve on that play? And he said all the credit in the world, because once the ball was in the air and up for battle, he boxed out Torrey Smith, so he could not get to it. I want to ask you something else. The last 14 seconds of this game, everybody thinks that, when that interception happens, game over, the Patriots are taking a knee. Little did a lot of people watching this game realize there was going to be time left toward the end of the possession. Talking to a few players and coaches after the game and other Patriots people, they did not want to take the chance of fumbling the ball. It is a cold night. The ball is rock hard and slippery, so they figure 14 seconds left, we'll take our chances.
You feel pretty good about where you are because of your special teams unit, because of your coverage units. The Ravens almost got to that punt at the end of the game. I mean, they sent as many people as they could send in that situation. They almost got to that punt. So there were some dicey moments. But right. I think at the same time, again, this is a special teams unit that has come up with game-changing plays over the course of the regular season. They made a big play tonight simply by making sure that they didn't break one at the end, that Baltimore didn't break one at the end. I thought it was interesting also to see on that last play, that jump ball, Rob Gronkowski out there, he's played the role of safety before. We've seen Randy Moss do that as well in years past. So they were able to get to the ball, they were able to knock it down, they were able to prevent a last-second touchdown from Baltimore, and again, it all worked out in the end.
A lot of people harken back to Super Bowl 46 when Gronk was in the end zone, obviously on the other end of it, trying to dive for the ball and just couldn't get it at the very end of that game. Historical perspective, Chris. People are going to call this one of the greatest Patriots games of all time. We've seen both a lot of great games. The Snow Bowl comes to mind. I think it's the gutsiest win for this franchise since then.
I think that there are a few other regular season wins I might put up there. Playoff wins. I mean, you could talk about the games that they had here with Manning and. Over the years, I remember in 2003, Steve McNair coming in here. And
I just don't think, Chris, they faced the odds in those games that they did in the first and second half tonight.
Yeah, that's a fair statement. I think that when you go back and you rewatch this game, and it's going to be a lot of fun to go back and rewatch this game, you look at the deficits that they faced. You look at the two 14-point deficits and the ability to come back from those. Both Brandon Browner and Darrelle Revis in the locker room after the game said, that just speaks to the character. That speaks to the heart of this team. I think that says an awful lot about where they are at this point in the season.
All right, let's get out of the cold, Chris. There was a lot to digest about what was a very classic game here at Gillette Stadium. The Patriots, again, advanced to the AFC Championship for a fourth straight season, coming back from 14-point deficits not once but twice, beating the Baltimore Ravens by a final of 35-31. Christopher Price, I'm Mike Petraglia, WEEI.com.